Ever heard that saying, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned? Well, today we're diving deep into a case that kind of brings that saying to life. It's a story where love turned into an obsession. So intense, it ended in tragedy.
Yeah, we're going to unravel a really complex web of emotions here. We'll be examining that fine line between love and hate and the devastating consequences when obsession takes control.
We're talking about Shayna Hubers and Ryan Poston. Ryan was a young Kentucky lawyer whose life was cut short in a way that nobody could predict it.
In this case, it goes way beyond your typical crime story. It really delves into the psychology behind a seemingly normal relationship gone terribly wrong. It forces us to consider the darker side of human behavior.
Yeah, and we're going to use court testimony, police interviews, and even Shayna's own words to piece together what happened leading up to that fateful night and try to understand what drove Shayna to commit such a horrific act.
By examining the evidence, you know we can gain a deeper understanding of the warning signs, of toxic relationships, and the importance of seeking help before it's too late.
So let's start by setting the stage with Ryan Poston, this young man with a bright future ahead of him.
Ryan was like the epitome of success. Imagine this, a triple major at Indiana University, graduating with honors from law school, and then following in his grandfather's footsteps to become a respected lawyer.
He was known for his dedication to helping others, even taking on pro bono work to ensure that everybody had access to justice. Even his mentor said he was on a rocket to the top of his field.
And it wasn't just his career. Ryan had a close-knit family, a strong support system, and a genuine desire to make a positive impact on the world. He truly seemed to have it all.
And then in 2011, back in the early days of Facebook being used for dating, Ryan met Shayna Hubers. Initially, their interactions were playful, flirtatious, nothing out of the ordinary. But there was an age gap. Ryan was 28, while Shayna was still in her late teens, barely 20.
And as their relationship progressed, certain red flags they started to emerge. It started subtly with Shayna's constant texting, like dozens of messages for every one of Ryan's.
And she would just show up at his condo unannounced, even after they had broken up. Friends described her as having these unpredictable mood swings, going from sweet to furious in like an instant.
Yeah, these early signs. Though they seemed insignificant at the time, they were actually classic indicators of a controlling and potentially volatile personality.
Ryan tried to break things off several times, but he was concerned about hurting Shayna, worried about how she might react. He even confided in his stepdad, asking for advice on how to end things gently.
He was caught in a difficult situation, wanting to be compassionate, but also sensing this growing danger. He even described Shayna to his cousin as restraining order level crazy, admitting that she almost scares me.
But unfortunately, Kentucky law at the time made it nearly impossible to get a restraining order, unless there was cohabitation or a shared child.
The laws were designed to protect against physical violence or stalking, but they didn't account for the emotional manipulation and psychological abuse that Ryan was experiencing.
And as time went on, Shayna's behavior escalated. She admitted to sending 75 text messages in a single hour, and even after breakups, she kept a key to his condo.
This possessiveness, it's more than just a red flag. It speaks to a deeper issue of control. Shayna wasn't just expressing affection. She was attempting to exert power over Ryan's life and restrict his freedom.
It's chilling when you think about it. And it gets even more disturbing when you consider what happened when she went to a shooting range with Ryan.
While at the range, Shayna sent a text message to a friend saying, "When I go to the shooting range with Ryan tonight, I want to turn around, shoot and kill him, and play like it's an accident."
A text like that sends shivers down your spine. It reveals a level of premeditation that's truly frightening. And Ryan, sensing the danger, even told his cousin that Shayna was restraining order level crazy, that she almost scared.
He clearly felt trapped, and his fear was completely justified. But what's interesting is that Shayna seemed to be aware of the dysfunctional nature of their relationship. In another text to a friend, she admitted, "He says he's only with me because I make him feel so awful about it when I cry."
It's almost like she took pride in her ability to manipulate him, to use his kindness and compassion against him. It really makes you wonder, was it love or was it something else entirely? A need for control, a twisted sense of power?
That's the question that lies at the heart of this case, and we'll continue to explore it as we delve deeper into the events leading up to Ryan's death.
Yes, like she was living in a world of her own creation, a world where her emotions just dictated reality. And as we get into the night of the murder, that distorted reality just becomes even more apparent.
Okay, so paint the picture for us. What were the events leading up to that fateful night?
So it was October 12th, 2012, a seemingly ordinary Friday evening. Ryan had dinner with his parents, sharing his plans for a date later that night with Audrey Bolt. Miss Ohio 2012.
He was excited, finally moving on from that tumultuous relationship with Shaina. He even told his parents at this time it was over for good.
It seemed like Ryan was finally taking those steps, towards a happier future, a future without that constant drama and manipulation. That had really plagued his relationship with Shayna.
But tragically, that future was never realized. Later that evening, around 8:30 p.m., a chilling 911 call came in. On the other end of the line was Shaina Hubers. Her voice was this mixture of panic and a strange sense of attachment.
You know that 911 call?
Yeah.
It's one of the most disturbing pieces of evidence in this case. It's like you're listening to someone trying to convince themselves of a story that doesn't quite add up.
Yeah, she starts by saying, "I killed my boyfriend in self-defense." But then she goes on to describe shooting Ryan multiple times because he was twitching. And throughout the call, there's just this distinct lack of genuine remorse, almost as if she's more concerned with protecting herself than with expressing sorrow for what she's done.
Yeah, it's hard to comprehend the mindset of someone who could take another person's life and then react with such emotional detachment. And what's even more perplexing is that she waited 15 minutes before calling 911. Why the delay?
That's a question that investigators they really grappled with. During those 15 minutes, Shaina called her mother first, asking for advice. And it raises the question, if this was truly self-defense, wouldn't her first instinct be to call for help immediately?
It almost seems like she was using those 15 minutes to compose herself, to create a narrative that would justify her actions.
And when the police arrived at Ryan's condo, the crime scene, it added another layer of complexity to the case. While there were signs of a struggle, there was also this unsettling sense of order.
What do you mean by order?
Certain items were carefully arranged, as if Shaina had tried to stage the scene after the shooting, attempting to create the illusion of self-defense.
It's a chilling thought. The idea that someone could commit such a violent act and then have the presence of mind to try and manipulate the evidence. And then there's the interrogation, which is almost as bizarre as the crime scene itself.
During the interrogation, Shaina's personality truly comes through. She's inconsistent with her story, offering these conflicting details about what led up to the shooting. At times, she even jokes about giving Ryan a nose job by shooting him in the face.
It's like she's putting on a performance, completely detached from the gravity of what she's done. She even asks about life in prison, complimenting the officer's teeth, showing this remarkable lack of concern for Ryan or his family.
Yeah, that detachment continued throughout her first trial. The prosecution laid out a really compelling case, emphasizing Shaina's motive, which they argued was this mix of jealousy and rage. They highlighted the lack of evidence supporting her self-defense claim, and they presented witnesses who painted a picture of Ryan as this kind and gentle soul who was desperately trying to escape a toxic relationship.
The prosecution's case was strong. They called Ryan's family to the stand, his parents and his sister, who spoke about his loving nature and his dedication to helping others. They also called Audrey Bolt, the woman Ryan was supposed to meet for a date that night.
And then, of course, there were those damning text messages, revealing Shaina's obsession with Ryan and her disturbing desire to harm him. The jury deliberated for less than 5 hours before returning with a guilty verdict.
It seemed like justice had been served. The judge, visibly shaken by the case, called the murder cold-blooded and sentenced Shaina to 40 years in prison. But this wasn't the end of the story.
Just when it seemed like the case was closed, a twist emerged that would send the case back to square one.
What happened? A retrial. That's crazy how that happened.
Well, it all came down to a technicality. One of the jurors in the first trial had a past felony conviction for unpaid child support.
So something completely unrelated to the case itself managed to overturn a guilty verdict.
Yes, under Kentucky law, anyone convicted of a felony, regardless of the nature of the crime, is ineligible to serve on a jury. So the defense argued that this juror's presence on the panel, it tainted the verdict. And the judge agreed, granting Shaina a retrial.
Wow, that must have been devastating for Ryan's family, having to relive this whole ordeal all over again.
It was a heartbreaking turn of events. They had thought justice had been served, and now they were facing the prospect of another trial, another emotional roller coaster.
So Shaina gets a second chance. Did she show any remorse, any acceptance of responsibility for what she'd done?
Not quite. Instead, Shaina seemed to double down on her manipulative tactics. While awaiting her retrial, she orchestrated a petition for a change of venue, claiming she couldn't get a fair trial in the same county. The petition was supposedly signed by over 150 people.
That sounds like a long shot. Did it work?
No, it turned out that most of the signatures were forged, including one belonging to an attorney who actually worked for the prosecution. The judge saw right through it and denied the change of venue request.
It's like she thought she could outsmart the entire legal system. And then on top of that, she gets married while awaiting her retrial.
Yes, she married a transgender inmate named Unique Taylor. Shaina described it as a spiritual encounter. It just added another layer of bizarreness to this already complex and tragic story.
Okay, so retrial time. Did her attorneys stick with the self-defense strategy?
No, they took a completely different approach. This time they focused on Shaina's mental health, claiming she suffered from borderline personality disorder and PTSD.
So they're basically arguing that her mental state was a mitigating factor in the shooting.
Exactly. They painted a picture of Shaina as this vulnerable young woman who is in a controlling and abusive relationship with Ryan. They argued that she was acting out of fear and desperation. On the night of the shooting,
Did they provide any evidence to support these claims?
Shaina took the stand and delivered an emotional testimony about their relationship, describing instances of Ryan pushing her, threatening her, and controlling her every move.
It seems like a risky strategy, changing their entire defense in the middle of the game. Did it work?
The prosecution was ready for them. They pointed out the inconsistencies in Shaina's stories, noting that she had never mentioned any of this abuse during her first trial or in her initial interrogation.
So her story was starting to unravel.
Yes, and the prosecution had some new ammunition. They presented testimony from fellow inmates who claimed that Shaina had fabricated her story and had even coached them on what to say to support her claims of abuse.
And remember that witness from the mall who overheard Shaina threaten to kill Ryan?
Yes, that testimony was also presented in the retrial, further weakening the defense's case. Despite their best efforts, the jury once again saw through Shaina's act. They returned with a guilty verdict, and this time she was sentenced to life in prison.
There's a certain sense of finality in that verdict. Ryan's family must felt a wave of relief knowing that justice had finally been served, and that Shaina wouldn't be able to hurt anyone else.
It was a bittersweet victory. While they were grateful for the verdict, nothing could bring Ryan back. His loss left a void in their lives that would never be filled. During the sentencing hearing, Ryan's family delivered powerful impact statements.
I can't even imagine what it must have been like to stand in front of the woman who murdered your son, your brother, and express the pain and devastation that she had caused.
His sister's statement was particularly moving. She brought a teddy bear to the stand, a bear that contained a recording of Ryan's voicemail message. She played the recording for the court, allowing everyone to hear Ryan's voice one last time.
Just a heartbreaking reminder of the young life that was senselessly taken. What about Shaina? Did she express any remorse during sentencing?
Even facing a life sentence, Shaina maintained her innocence, claiming that she was the victim of a manipulative and abusive boyfriend.
So, after all of this, after 2 trials and years of legal battles, she still refused to take responsibility for her actions.
It's a difficult thing to comprehend. This case leaves us with many unanswered questions. What drove Shaina to such extremes? Was it love turned to obsession, a need for control, or a combination of factors that we may never fully understand?
It's a tragic story, a reminder of the devastating consequences of unchecked jealousy and possessiveness. And it forces us to confront the darker side of human nature, the capacity for violence and manipulation that exists within us all.
But it's also a reminder of the importance of recognizing the warning signs, of toxic relationships, of seeking help when we need it, and of cherishing the preciousness of life.
This deep dive has been a roller coaster of emotions. We've explored the legal complexities of the case, the psychological profiles of the individuals involved, and the devastating impact of violence on families and communities. If there's one thing we can take away from this story, it's the importance of open communication, healthy boundaries, and seeking help when relationships become destructive.
And as we conclude this deep dive, I encourage you to reflect on the red flags that we've discussed, not only in romantic relationships, but in all aspects of your life. Recognize the signs of manipulation and control, and never hesitate to reach out for help if you or someone you know is in a dangerous situation.
Thank you for joining us on this journey into the heart of a complex and tragic case. We'll be back soon with another deep dive exploring a different topic, but with the same commitment to unraveling the truth and shedding light on the human experience. Till then, stay curious, stay informed, and stay safe.